Justified in questions, justified in getting answers. Matt Palumbo and Booker Scott are justified. This is the PB&J Podcast.
And just like clockwork, the U.S. Senate has left for the August recess. And guess what? They left a lot of work undone, including the SAVE Act. But don't worry, the House of Representatives, they're going to be back Monday to pick up right where the Senate left off and do absolutely nothing. That's what we can get used to these days. Coming up this hour, we're going to get into a conversation with Judd Saul. He's the founder of Equipping the Persecuted. And I don't know if you know this, but there are over 50,000 Christians that have been killed since 2009 in Nigeria. Nobody is talking about it, but we are. I'm Booker Scott, and this is the PB&J Podcast. Our co-host here for this hour is Matt Palumbo. He is a best-selling author. He is also the former content director of the Bongino Report. And right now, he's not in his studio, as he normally is. Matt, where are you?
I'm in Cape May, New Jersey. As you can tell, I've been getting my tan on. So
you look great. Yeah, it's a good tan you have there.
Yeah, it's been quite a lot. Yes.
Well, we're going to get later on into the conversation about the Christians that have been murdered and kidnapped, and that has to do with Muslims. And I think we can tie it back into what we are seeing in this country in some ways. That is Sharia law that's taking place down there in the central belt of Nigeria that is where all the murdering and kidnapping is going on of Christians. So we'll get into that here in a few minutes. But before we do, I think we should probably talk about Tuesday night and the elections that took place. We talked about Michigan last week between Haley Stevens and Abdul El-Sayed. And El-Sayed won. I think we both said that he would. I was shocked at how close it was. It was less than a point. It was about 17,000 votes. Were you surprised by that?
Well, no, because it seemed like the uber progressives were loving him, and they're the ones that have been the most eager to vote. So I guess I was expecting that, but it's good news for us in that the odds of a Republican beating him, I think, were far higher than that of a Republican beating Haley Stevens. And, unfortunately, and this is something we've talked about on the show a lot, when your party is in power, for some reason, that's the side that has no enthusiasm in off-election year elections. So Democrats have an advantage there, but there are a lot of Democrats, at least hopefully, that, well, they're not going to cross over and vote for Mike Rogers, will at least not vote for him. And the reality is, when you're on a ballot, if a voter does not know the names and they see Mike Rogers and then they see Abdul Muhammad bin Osama bin Muhammad, they're going to go, I'll go with the normal sounding name. And that even happened recently in, actually, I feel like I had it in the show notes, where there was a Trump endorsed candidate in a Republican primary, and Trump rallied for him the week before the election, but his name sounded Muslim. He was not, but it sounded Muslim, and he lost to a guy with a generic white guy name who dropped out of the race but was still on the ballot. So my point with this being, just having a normal name actually gives you an advantage of a couple points. And in an election like this, when it's a swing state like Michigan, that actually could turn the election. And I know it sounds so inconsequential, but you have to realize, like, the people watching the show, the average person has no idea what's going on in the world at all, especially with local politics. And you, by watching a show like this, probably know more than at least 90% of people. So when things like in a local election, things like the order of which the names are displayed makes a difference. If you have a two-man race and they have no name recognition, no one knows who either candidate is, the guy who's first on the list will usually outperform by 10 points. It's not a coin flip. So just these little things, where you are on the ballot, your name, what your name sounds like, will make a big difference. And it's bad news for Abdul bin something.
It's El
I
Sayed, is
know
what
that's
it
not
is.
really his
Oh,
name,
and
by the way.
you didn't even wear pants,
El
did
Sayed,
you?
yeah.
You're wearing shorts. You're really on vacation. That's nice. Can we get a shot of those
the
legs
beach.
again?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's a close up. Thanks.
You do
I
not want to
appreciate
see
you
that,
doing that. Well, let's go to Donald Trump. He had some words to say about Abdul Al Sayed. Here he is.
Every time this has happened, and you do that, you go through squalor and add the word again: filth, crime, death, destruction, embarrassment. You lose your home, you lose your apartment, and that's where the communists will take us 100%. When I watch Abdul, he's full of shit.
And he calls him Abdul. I guess they're on that type of terms at this point. But
before, that's great.
have you seen it? Yeah, interesting how he did that. But
No,
you were talking
great.
about his name. I've got a clip here of Abdul talking about his name here. Let's watch that together and pay attention to how you're supposed to say this, Matt.
The allies are launching is already more bitter. All you got to do is look at the odds. You're already watching on TV. Started today. You know, they think that you want to use my whole name against me. Mike, listen, man, if you can't say the name, it's Abdurrahman, keep the name out your damn mouth. I'll be happy to.
Would you like to give that a shot? You want to try that, Matt?
No. My number one rule of immigration is part of assimilation is making it where I don't have to learn how to pronounce your name. So if you're from India and you want your kid to be named like Van Kush, no, Joe. Just go with Joe. Something simple.
Yeah,
I don't want to have to learn, and it'll make people way more accepting too. You know,
we have a Joe later in this.
His name. I saw a video on X.
We've got a video.
I saw a video.
We seem to have a little delay here tonight. It's probably because of your vacation, but don't worry about it. I'll try to give you enough space to go ahead and talk. So go ahead.
Why don't you go ahead?
I was just going to say that we have a Joe. We have a Joe coming up a little bit later in this program that actually died, and he won a race. And you were talking about that a couple of weeks ago. So pay attention to these races.
There was one in Nevada where it was a Republican running against a Democrat. The Republican died and then won in a blowout. So
this was Thursday.
It was the first time that I'm talking about years ago.
Yeah. No, this was Thursday. It happened again, Matt.
That's awesome. It's funny because normally the dead vote Democrat, but the dead can also win elections as Republicans. So their deader voters are deader the winners, I guess.
That's correct. I've never looked at it that way. Let's look up here on this video right now because I think there is something really important that came from Tuesday with Al Sayed and Haley Stevens, and that was who was voting for who. If you look where Al Sayed got his support, it was from the Muslim communities in Dearborn and other places, and it was the working people. It was the black voters. It was the Hispanics that showed up and voted for Haley Stevens, and that's why it was so close. And I have paid attention to a lot of people that were talking after that election on Tuesday, and they said they would not vote for Al Sayed. I even saw one Democrat say that he was going to go across the line and vote for Mike Rogers, the Republican who now is leading in that race in Michigan and could be a flip for the Republicans coming in November.
I had seen a video to that effect as well, where they were interviewing black Democrats, and it was the name issue. It was just, I don't want to vote for a guy with that name. And you know what? I think that, because he's the opposition, I'm totally fine with that logic. Good enough for me.
Well, let's go to Tennessee. I mentioned the mayor that ran in Claiborne County, Tennessee, and it's not a big county, but there he is. His name is Joe Brooks, and he is a Republican. He ran Thursday, even though he died in a motorcycle accident in a crash about a month ago, and he's on the ballot, and he literally won that election. And as you were talking about, it happened years ago in Nevada. Here is another Republican. He's really an independent, but he won the vote. There's not a lot of people in Claiborne County, as you can see, but he still won. And now what that means, Matt, is there's going to have to be a special election.
Second.
Yeah,
What
correct.
flavor of Jack was?
I was going to bring that up. Jack Daniels came in second. What are the odds Jack Daniels in Tennessee of winning? Did you happen to see the governor's race Thursday in Tennessee? The Marsha Blackburn, the senator from Tennessee, she won the Republican nomination for that, so she will move on into November as well. You know, the Senate left on Friday, and they did not pass the SAVE Act. They didn't bring it for a vote. That was disappointing. Todd Blanche did not get through, but let's have a conversation about Todd Blanche real quick, because you have Lisa Murkowski and you have Susan Collins in Maine. Both have come out and said they will not vote for his confirmation. You have Mitch McConnell, who, by the way, we do have some news about Mitch McConnell this week. They say he has left rehab and he is home recuperating now. So for everybody that thought he was brain dead, and I think, Matt, you and I both said that's not the case. That was too much to cover up for his staff, and they would have gotten in trouble at some point had they continued to try to cover that up.
Although we had both agreed that being brain dead does not exclude you from being a senator, so he could still hold the job. It's been done
or
before.
He's been brain dead for a while.
One of the
also,
two.
Yeah. But they say he is home now, and so I guess that's good news for Mitch McConnell. But he's not going to be there to vote for Todd Blanche to have him confirmed to become the full-time and attorney general. So you have Murkowski, Collins, and now McConnell not there. That's all you can lose. And, you had John Cornyn and Tom Tillis came out earlier this week and said they would support him. And it came down really to one guy, and that was Bill Cassidy. And he is the Republican that did not get Donald Trump's endorsement. He was really anti-Donald Trump the entire time he has been in office, and he lost his race, and he's not going to be there anymore as of January. But he did this on the Senate floor talking about this vote for Todd Blanche. Let's watch this.
This is not a referendum on President Trump. It is a decision regarding Mr. Blanche in very specific circumstances. All considered, I will vote for Mr. Blanche. I'll be criticized for this vote. What's new? But the people of Louisiana can be assured that I worked hard to understand the issue and to make the right decision. With that, I yield.
And he yielded his vote to Todd Blanche is what he's going to do. So I guess that puts us at 50. We should be able to get a confirmation for him, I guess, whenever they come back from vacation. I think they're gone for 3 weeks. The House is coming back. One thing the Senate did pass was a continuing resolution, which I never thought that they would pass, and that will fund the government from October 1st until December 11th. But it now goes to the House, and when the House comes back into town, they are going to have to take that on. There was something very interesting that the Senate put in there, and I have said for a long time that that continuing resolution was never going to be passed by the Democrats. They would prefer the government be shut down, put that on the Republicans, and it was going to hurt the Republicans in the midterm. However, the Democrats passed it, and it made me curious, Matt. Why in the world would the Democrats go along with a continuing resolution to keep the government open? And when you look into it, it's what Susan Collins and other Republicans and Democrats added to that continuing resolution when it came from the House. And the Office of Management and Budget, Russell Vaught is his name, you probably know him. He, on May 29th, 2026, he changed the regulations on DEI and grants that could be given to organizations, and he stripped all of that out of there from the Biden years. So what the Senate has done is stop that from happening. So they cut the legs out from under Donald Trump on DEI and wokeness by doing this continuing resolution. Chuck Schumer is calling it a big win for them and the Democrats. And unfortunately, the way this may work is you go to December 11th, and then you don't have the reconciliation passed, which is 12 appropriations. That's for the budget for 2027, which is due by the end of September. And if not, there's a government shutdown unless there's a continuing resolution, which is what this was. So now you go to December 11th. If they don't have the appropriations passed at that point, you're still going to have a government shutdown. So the Democrats could assume that they're going to win the House of Representatives. They then would have control. They'll let the government shut down. They'll wait until a new Congress is sworn in after the 1st of January, and then they have all the control and the power and the leverage at that point to keep DEI and wokeness out of the Trump administration. So I wasn't happy that the continuing resolution was done the way that it was in the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, it's tremendously disappointing. I guess we can hope that, they've made enough progress on stripping DEI that this is, minor relative to everything that has been undone. But, it is obviously very unfortunate. I did like, too, that Cassidy needed a script to read about 2 sentences out loud. Great leaders.
He was upset. Yeah, he was crying. Yeah. I don't know if you picked up on that. He was quite an emotional thing for him, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, having to help Trump is what was emotional for him. And he's afraid that the people of Louisiana are going to be mad at him for confirming Todd Blanche. I don't think that's the truth.
No. I don't think so either. I think they're going to be fine with it. And I think it would be more detrimental to him if he voted against. So, yeah, weird to see.
Yeah. Let's go back to Tuesday real quick and talk about some other elections, because we're talking about the Democrat Socialist of America all over. And El Sayed really, I guess he tries to distance himself from that label. But if you look at his the things that he stands for, he's right in line with everything of the Democrat Socialist of America. And we have seen them win races in New York and Colorado and other places during this primary season. But I took some encouragement from what happened in Virginia. I don't know if you paid attention to that, but the Democrat Socialist of America, they lost every race they were in Virginia to another Democrat. So the people of Virginia, they're not going for it. Maybe it's because the approval rating of Spanberger is so low as the governor there. And she kind of came in saying she was a moderate, and she's doing gun grabs and everything else in Virginia. She is no moderate. She is also a socialist. And I think the people of Virginia said, no, we're not doing the Democrat socialist stuff here.
Yeah, the Democrat socialist phenomenon is in places that are, Democrat plus 40 or plus 50. I mean, places where Democrats are getting 90% of the vote. And even then, with Chevalier, Valdez, etc., they're winning with, 55, 60% of the vote. So if we were going to be generous to the average Democrat, we could say, well, at least 40% of you aren't voting for a socialist as your first choice. That being said, they're obviously going to fall in line and vote for them anyway. But overall, the polling suggests that about 1 in 3 Democrats does identify as a socialist. So it is a very real phenomenon within the party. It is a faction that is growing. But so far, they've only been able to get elected in places where, a cat would beat a Republican or a dead person would beat us. So that's good news. We're going to see another test as well in Wisconsin, in that Francesca Hong, who is completely insane. If you don't know anything about her, that's all you need to know, but is a DSA bat candidate. And it seems like she's on track to win the Democrat primary, in which case we're probably going to have a Republican governor there, hopefully.
Yeah. Tom Tiffany would be the governor for Wisconsin. He's a good candidate, and he's a good member of the House of Representatives as well. And he was a state rep earlier.
She's called for, we've always thought liberals were crazy for calling for abolishing police, which she has. She's also called for abolishing Thanksgiving. She criticizes white men all the time, which is standard on the left, but I guess her husband is white, and she didn't want to mention that. So during an interview, she almost let it slip out. She's like, I have a mixed race kid. And quickly pivoted from I have a white husband to I have a mixed race kid, because I guess she thought that would be damning to her base or something. But no, she's all over the place. And then one thing, too, that I thought was funny, she had a restaurant that no longer exists. I don't know if it failed or she just closed it down. But in one of her campaign ads, she rented a restaurant to shoot an ad from and pretended that it was her restaurant and was talking about all her time in the industry. She no longer is a chef. So a total fake human being. And I think I might have brought this up last episode. Her parents recently had to pay off $40,000 worth of her credit card debt. And listen, I get there are people struggling in this country. I'm not trying to make light of that. It's just that those aren't necessarily the people you want running a state budget.
No, you don't. And by the way, Bernie Sanders, he ran from her. He's not even endorsing her. And when they questioned him about it, he was like, well, I really don't know much about that race. So I don't know. I think
He knows a lot about that race.
He is just staying away from it, isn't he? Let's go to the FCC and a rules change that they came out with this week. You want to talk about that, Matt?
Is that the one where they're going to change, like they're targeting The View? Or am I thinking something else?
No, I don't think they're targeting The
I know
View.
there was oh, no. There was talk recently with the FCC regulating The View as a news program because of the political bias. I didn't know if I had seen that in the headlines. I didn't know if that's what you were referring to. I see now in front of me that is not at all what you're referring to.
No, it's not, which confused me. But what it is that they changed the number of television stations that can be owned in a market. And a lot of people are.
I pitched the story. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, so this will, the overall summary is just that this will help smaller broadcasters expand their market share. And we all know that national news is left wing with, the exception of Fox, which is, center right, I guess, or Newsmax. But the overwhelming majority of the networks and the total viewership is left wing on the national level. But the right does control certain media outlets. Radio has been dominated by the right. It's just not as mainstream a platform, I guess, or as listened to as television. But local news, Sinclair is a right-wing news organization, and most local news is owned by Sinclair and has a right-leaning bias. So that's a fact that a lot of people on the right, I don't think are aware of, but this will be very good for us in that this is one way right-wing views actually will be able to get out there.
And that is a concern by some of the Democrats that this was done. When you go back through the history of broadcasting and television and radio in this country, if you go back to 1987, it was the FCC at that time that took away the fairness in broadcasting, which was a regulation there in the FCC. That was when Ronald Reagan was president. And then Congress tried to change it and put that back in, the Fairness in Broadcasting Act. It had overwhelming Republican support. It passed, and Ronald Reagan vetoed it at the time. And then you go into 1996 and the Telecommunications Act, and that was when they allowed more than one radio or television station to be owned in a market by the same ownership. And that is when a lot of these conglomerates came about, like iHeartRadio as an example, and Town Square Radio, CBS Radio. A lot of these, about 4 or 5 of these, ended up owning all of the radio stations in the country, and television was the same way, and that was the result of that 1996 Telecommunications Act. A lot of people, they like to talk about the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, but I don't think it has as much to do with what we see in a Mockingbird media than the other two things that I just mentioned. And maybe this new FCC rule may help things for the conservatives and the right side of broadcasting.
Yeah, I hope so. If you look at trust in national media, it seems like it's always at an all-time low, which I guess it's getting worse and worse every year. But yeah, hopefully, I know people do tend to trust things that are local to them more than those that are not. We sort of see this in politics where everyone thinks that Congress is horrible, but they trust their congressman, or, they think schools nationwide are horrible, but they like their school district. And it's kind of like the same with news. They might think, well, the nationwide media is lying to me, but my local network would not. And fortunately for us, that local network is more to the right, and they should hire us soon.
Well, let's get into the story about Duke University and the way that they admitted students in. And what they did was they admitted everybody but white students and Asians. They were harder on them. Yep. And the Department of Justice has come out and written a letter to the attorneys there at Duke.
So this is a continuation, really, of what we've already known is happening, and it just gives us new data on what it's like in a certain school. But for decades in this country, studies on affirmative action have shown that being Black and Hispanic and just signing your name is the equivalent of getting a boost of over 200 points on the SAT when it comes to their calculation of your likelihood to get in. If you're Asian, it's a huge drag on you. And if you're white, it's also a drag. And then being a man also doesn't help you very much either. So college has been rigged like that for quite a while. There's a lot of polling on sort of the psychology of the left's support of it. Or I shouldn't say a lot of polling. There's one that comes to mind where they asked liberals, They explained affirmative action. Of course, they know what it is. But they said, it hurts Asian people. Do you still support it? And most of them then said no. But then they said, okay, actually, it's not Asians. It's white guys. Do you support it? And all of them say yes. So it's also this part of their whole racial, I've heard the term race communism used a lot lately, that, the values of the Soviet Union exist within the American left. It's just not class that is the dividing factor. It's race that they're using to latch onto and create, classes of oppressor and oppressed. And it's a new mock-up of that. But, universities are probably the worst offenders with affirmative action. And that's just speaking of the school, the students that come in. When it comes to hiring, there is overwhelming evidence of discrimination, and that if you are a conservative and they know, you're not getting hired. The only way a Republican is getting hired at a university is if you are, quote unquote, one of the good ones, which means being registered as a Republican and not believing a single Republican talking point. Now, some people could say, I'm sure a liberal would say, no, the professors are all liberal because they're so much smarter. And I would point out, we know, for instance, that almost everyone who majors in economics is a Republican. It's an overwhelming, students who study economics are overwhelmingly Republican. Yet, most economics professors are liberal. Well, how is that possible that almost everyone graduating in a field is a Republican, but then the only people getting hired at universities are liberal? That, to me, that points to evidence of ideological discrimination, or just the fact that Republicans maybe would rather make money than teach. But there's a million other points of evidence, and that has a gender studies department in the history of Western civilization ever hired a Republican, or a sociology department? And obviously, the answer is probably no.
Yeah. Matt, do you know much about what is happening in Nigeria with the killing of Christians? Yeah, it's been going on for a couple of decades now. We're going to get into that here in just a minute. We're coming up on a break. Also, just to continue on about that story on admissions, there's a Newsweek story 2024 at the University of Washington where they were discriminating against Asian and white professors the same way as Duke University is doing. And it's not just Duke. We know this is happening all over.
Everywhere.
It's happening. It's in the news right now because the Department of Justice, Harmeet Dillon, the civil side of the DOJ, they have done an investigation, and now they are moving forward with the University of Duke. We'll see where this goes. Is there going to be accountability? Probably not. There never is there?
The problem, the thing is, the administration has gone after DEI departments in colleges, and the way they've been getting around it is they just don't call it DEI. They just rebrand it. Okay, we're no longer the DEI department. We're the social equity department. We're the advancement for blah, blah, blah department. And the curriculum is identical. The values are identical. They just change up the titles from DEI officer to chief whatever officer. So that's the problem in regulating it. It's very difficult when you can just have DEI and not call it DEI.
We want to thank everybody for watching tonight on WD Americans Facebook Live. They have a great content throughout the week. If you're not following them, please do that. They have about 3.5 million people that follow them. So thank you for watching. We're watching the comments, so please continue to make the comments. And if you're watching on any of the Talk Red platforms, thank you very much for doing that. This is the PB&J Podcast. I'm Booker Scott along with Matt Palumbo. And we are Palumbo, Booker, and we are Justified. We have a very important guest coming up next. His name is Judd Saul, and we're going to talk about Nigeria and the persecution of Christians.
Tired of struggling with low energy? We get it. That's why we created Organic Energy Juice. You'll have natural energy all day, and you'll never struggle with low energy again. In just 2 minutes, you can restore your natural energy without chemicals, without stimulants, no toxins, and there is no crash. You shouldn't have to struggle with low energy, and with the Organic Energy Juice, you won't. So if you're struggling with low energy, buying Organic Energy Juice is the right decision. Go to chemicalfreebody.com, use the discount code PBJ, and get your Organic Energy Juice today.
In Nigeria, in Africa, thousands and thousands of Christians have been killed. Many have been taken kidnapped. And we're talking about an area here in Africa that does Sharia law. We're talking about Boko Haram and other factions there in Nigeria that have been doing this. They demand that you convert to Islam, is what they do. In the meantime, they have wiped out thousands of churches. They have killed thousands. I don't know that we really and truly know the real number of how many they have killed, but we're going to try to find out some of this information now. And unfortunately, you don't hear about this very much. Nobody is talking about this. Judd Saul is award-winning documentary filmmaker. He is dedicated to the mission in Nigeria. He witnesses firsthand what happens to Christians in Nigeria as he visits there many times throughout the year. It has become his life, and he is now joining us. And, Mr. Saul, thank you very much for making the time to come here and talk to us about this important, it's really sad what's happening to the Christians in Nigeria. It's very important, but we don't hear about it. Why do we not hear about it?
Well, the reason I think the West doesn't hear about what's going on is because the Nigerian government has this wonderful partnership with Al Jazeera, which is the main news source that goes out to the rest of the world about what's happening in Nigeria. So, for instance, let's say that there's a instance where 200 Christians are killed, and that's the actual number killed. Well, by the time, and it's done by Muslims against Christians, done by armed Muslim groups killing Christians. Well, by the time it gets to the mainstream press, the numbers like 75 villagers were killed by unknown gunmen or bandits. And that has been the news coming out of Nigeria for the last 15 years. And finally, through our work and some work of others, people are starting to pay attention and kind of ask the question, well, how come it's always unknown gunmen or bandits killing villagers? What's actually going on here? Well, we come to find out that it's well-armed, well-funded, well-orchestrated Islamic groups.
What is first of all, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. What is the status of Boko Haram and ISIS's presence there? And that I remember, and this must have been a decade ago, there were reports that Boko Haram and ISIS were merging into one group. I didn't know if that was still the case today, if they had fractured. And I guess my question is, is it both groups that are attacking these Christians there, or I guess what is the situation with them?
So I'm gonna clarify a few things and kind of set the record straight here. Is that so? You have ISIS, you have Boko Haram, and then you have what we call the Fulani ethnic militia. Now, the Fulani ethnic militia is the group that's responsible for the lion's share of Christians being killed in Nigeria. ISIS and Boko Haram have done their part. They've wreaked havoc up in the north, but nothing is compared to how much the Fulani ethnic militia has killed Christians. And so the problem is that the United States government is working with the Nigerian government to essentially defeat ISIS. ISIS is the group that is the group that the U.S. government's focused on. But ISIS really isn't the one killing Christians right now. The ones that are killing Christians are the Fulani ethnic militia. And unfortunately, the Fulani have control of Nigeria's security apparatus. So essentially, everything that the U.S. government's been doing is fighting the enemy of the enemy. The Fulani hate ISIS. Boko Haram hates ISIS. They don't get along with one another. So right now, the U.S. government is assisting Nigeria into getting rid of their own enemy, but it is doing nothing to stem the tide of the killing of Christians in Nigeria.
What is their objective? Why do they want to kill the Christians?
They have stated openly that there is no peace unless there's a caliphate, unless they wipe out all Christians out of Nigeria and take over the land. They believe Nigeria is theirs for the taking, given to them by Allah. And what we've seen is just, I call it a death by 10,000 attacks. It's not like one force that's coming in and just taking over like a front. It's just, we're going to go after this village this time. We're going to go after this village over here. And before you know it, they've taken over half the country. Nigeria used to be 70% Christian. Now it's 50-50. And the Islamists have wiped out over 1,000 Christian communities away from the map in the last 30 years.
How many Christians total do you believe that they have actually killed? I threw up the number earlier of 52,000. and a lot of people in the mainstream media would push back and try to debunk that, say it's not that many. What do you think?
Well, that's because of the misinformation that's being put forth by the Nigerian government themselves and the propaganda arm of Al Jazeera, because they always underreport the numbers officially. And then it's always unknown victims, unknown gunmen. They never talk about who's done it. But according to our research and our on-the-ground reporting and documenting for the last 5 years, it's safe to say that on average, between 7,000 and 9,000 Christians are killed every year, especially over the last 5 years.
So since 2009, that 52,000 is probably pretty accurate, isn't it? I always think
it's
so.
more. It's more since
than
2009. Since 2019.
Yeah.
Since
2019 is 50,000. Wow.
Yes, it's been a lot more. It's been a lot more since 2009. And then what no one is accounting for, and this is very frustrating, is that that's Christians that have been killed by bullets and machetes. That does not account for the Christians that have died from malnutrition and disease because of the aftermath of those attacks. When you add that, the number is exponentially higher, because what you're talking about is Christians that have survived these attacks have been completely removed from their homes, their farmlands, and they're shoved into camps where they have no resources and they're left to fend for themselves. And we have people dying of malnutrition and disease on a higher rate than the actual bullets and machetes.
You mentioned earlier that, most of the time the press will say, well, there was 60 killed or there was a gunman. And I recall the Easter massacre. That's a perfect example of that. It's hard to really find a number that that agrees with each other. Some of them are 25, some of them are 50. But the point is that Christians were killed on Easter, and then they're put in mass graves. And that's the way they do things there, isn't it?
That's if they're lucky enough to bury their dead properly. These Fulani ethnic militia will, on a regular basis, attack the funerals. And sometimes they have to throw them in a shallow grave and get out of town, so they're not killed.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: is our organization, Equipping the Persecuted.org, is my organization. We have been tracking, we have been issuing terror alerts for the last 2 years. We gave advance warning. We had information that they were going to attack on Easter and where they were going to attack, and we sent that to the U.S. government, the Nigerian government, and I warned about it. I said they're going to attack, and here's the places they're going to attack. And the Nigerian government did nothing. The U.S. government's not even paying attention to what's going on in the middle belt of Nigeria. And these massacres could have been avoided because we had the information that they were going to attack. And when I say we've issued 200 terror alerts, we have issued 200 terror alerts with 93% accuracy.
What's the answer, Judd? How does this solved? Is it solved at all? Short of Christians coming out of Nigeria, what else can be done?
Well, what can be done is a little bit of willpower from the U.S. government. For very little, we could set these guys back 50 years. The problem is I believe our government's playing games for mineral leverage at this point because they are ignoring the entire area where Christians are actually being killed. There is no focus. It's on ISIS, the shiny name, the shiny group, but there are no assets on the ground dealing with where the Christians are being killed.
And you believe that's something that America should do? Does that take boots on the ground? Is it special forces? What happens? What does that look like?
I have to be very careful about what I say. I'll just say this. With a little bit of willpower and creativity, I think things could end for the terrorists very quickly. The problem is that the Nigerian government is laying cover for those that are killing Christians. And our U.S. government is trying to do business with the Nigerian government while focused on ISIS when the other, like I said, Boko Haram and the Fulani both all hate ISIS. And we all agree ISIS should be eliminated. But if we're using it under the guise of protecting persecuted Christians, we have to focus on those areas. And if the U.S. focused on those areas, I think things would change very fast.
Judd Saul is our guest. He is an award-winning documentary filmmaker, and he mentioned his organization. I put it up there on the screen. I'll do that again. And Matt, I'll come to you if you have any other questions. But there is the organization. You can go to that website. You can donate to help their work. It is called Equipping the Persecuted, and it focuses on prevention of Christian murders and also the aftercare of persecuted Christians, because a lot of them are not murdered, are they? They're kidnapped and then they're returned, and you help those people as well, don't you?
Yes. So, look, we have a humanitarian side of our mission, which responds to the attacks within 24 hours. When kidnapped victims get released, we're there to help them recover, rebuild. And unfortunately, it's just endless. If the Christians aren't being killed one day, they're being kidnapped another day. And then the people have to cough up everything they own to try to get their loved ones back. And it's extortion, it's crime, it's all done by Muslim groups. They've implemented full Sharia law, and Christians have no rights. They're second-class citizens, and they are being extorted to death, and they are being massacred.
Matt, I'll come back to you, and then I have a couple of more questions, and we will let Judd leave for this hour. Really appreciative of you being here on the program, but go ahead, Matt.
I've it's embarrassing to admit, but I myself have never heard of the was Fulani, the militia group. You and I, Booker, follow this kind of news. I was not familiar with them. How large are they compared to groups like ISIS or Boko Haram in raw numbers, if we know that?
In raw numbers, there's more Fulani than there are Boko Haram and ISIS.
Oh, man.
And they are planted all throughout the country of Nigeria. And what we do know is that they are gearing up, they're arming themselves, they're building settlements around Christian communities, waiting to do attacks. And here's what my argument is: if something isn't done soon, if an intervention isn't done soon, it's not going to be thousands of people that are killed. It's going to be in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if something isn't done soon.
Interesting. When it comes to Sharia law, do you think the states in America are being smart when they pass laws to make sure that Sharia law does not come into America? You're on the ground in Nigeria. You see what it is. Jeez. What do you think?
Yeah, because what happened in Nigeria in the northern states is they moved in, they gained a population, they got involved in politics, they implemented Sharia law, and now the Christians in every one of the states that have implemented Sharia law are second-class citizens. And Sharia law trumps Nigerian law every time. There's mob justice. If somebody thinks somebody blasphemed the Prophet Muhammad or whatever happened, mob justice, they go kill them, they burn them alive. There's no trial, there's no court date. And if they think a Christian's offended them, they'll go after and kill them. No justice. These people are never put in prison. If you kill a Fulani cow, they think they have the right to kill 10 people if you kill one of their cows. And if they kill 10 people, none of them ever go to prison because they're practicing Sharia law.
So what you described there, in some ways, it seems like that's what's going on here in America. At least a lot of people perceive it that way. Do you see it that way as well?
Oh, 100%, because this is how they've conquered every country since 640 AD. They move in, they're nice, they populate, and they start, we're friends, they do commerce together. But once they hit that threshold, once they hit that majority, the killing starts, but they also have the control of the politics and the power to lay cover for their killing and rinse and repeat. And the same thing is happening in Europe. The same thing is happening in parts of the U.S., where they move in, they get a population, they get the police force, they get the local politics. Now there's no-go zones, and Christians are not allowed to walk freely in certain areas of the country. This is what they did in Nigeria, and if we allow this to continue in the U.S., Nigeria will eventually happen here.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, and
Matt,
I think
I'll come back to you.
Yeah, I was going to say too. I know there are certain states that have very, very minuscule Muslim populations that have passed anti-Sharia bills. And a lot of people have looked at that and said, well, what's the point if there's no Muslims there to begin with? And they're missing the fact that it's preemptive, because the average Muslim, I think by age, is the lowest of any religion. They have the most kids, and they have the highest birth rates. So they can, within a generation or two, become a very substantial percentage of the population. And, if Muslims are 1% of the population and you see them being mistreated, it's very easy to view them as an oppressed minority. But that minority, when it becomes, and I think it's only 10 or 15% of the population, then you're going to go, whoa, wait a second. You're treating me the way I saw you get treated. And it's how it ends everywhere it happens.
Yeah, it's very frightening. I just got back from London recently, and I was talking to some folks out there, and the top 4 names, baby names, the new baby names in England are Muhammad, but they're different spellings of Muhammad. It's the top 4.
Guess that. Jeez.
The top 4. There's different spellings of Muhammad, but it's in the top 4 of new babies, new births in England. Wow. And like I said, they believe in population. They don't kill their children. They believe in strong families, but they also believe in multiple wives and creating multiple children with multiple wives.
Yeah.
And that's how they spread and dominate.
And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know, too, that they already have Sharia courts in the UK. I think there's actually hundreds of them. And they're, the talking point I hear from liberals is, well, they're voluntary. You get to choose if you want to do Sharia or a regular court. But I do not believe for a second, if there's a dispute between a man and a woman, the female Muslim has any say whatsoever. I mean, they would be the first ever.
Oh no. They don't have rights. They don't have rights at all.
Think so.
And for the left to just be completely ignorant on this, it just boggles my mind. Like I believe what Elon says, it's a woke mind virus. Yeah. It is a mind virus. It's not healthy, and it's eating away at their brains. But like I say, I go to Nigeria frequently. I've seen the dead bodies. I've talked to the witnesses and survivors multiple times. They all say the same thing. They were kind to us. We moved in. They moved into our community. We did commerce. We did business. Our children played together. Then the one day, the killings came, and their neighbors partook in the attacks and slaughtered their next door neighbors, the children, the women, the elderly. It didn't matter.
That's a warning. Take that warning from Judd Saul there. Judd, thank you so much for coming on the program. We really do appreciate it. He is award-winning documentary filmmaker, and the name of his group his organization is Equipping the Persecuted. Please Google that, find it. If you'd like to support his work, please donate him. And Judd, thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thanks, Chip. God bless.
Wow, Matt, what do you think? That it sounds like America, Nigeria was America, 40, 30 years ago, and now they are to the point now where they're killing Christians. And I think that's the fear that many people watching this program tonight have about Muslims in America. And when you see people like El Sayed running and, his constituency there in Dearborn, this is what we may be coming to. Don't think that it can't happen.
Back when I was in high school, I remember in the news seeing Dearborn cited as an example of a place where Muslims and Christians could exist in harmony. And if that's the best case scenario, it's a totally irredeemable screwed situation, because that is not at all what's happening there. Their mayor is a psychopath. There was one guy, I think we probably played this on the show at one point, where he went to a city council meeting, and the Muslim mayor was encouraging him to leave the city and saying he would throw a parade when this Christian guy left the city. So they are openly hostile to the people who live there. And it's just the same story pretty much everywhere you go. The only real exceptions to that rule are countries that are sort of Muslim in name only, where people might identify as Muslim as it's their family tradition, but don't actually practice it, or they go for holidays but drink alcohol and do other behaviors that are un-Islamic. So the only scenario it really works is when you have people who are sort of Muslim in name only but don't actually really seem to believe it, which is obviously kind of rare.
Well, let's shift gears. Let's go back to little Fauci. Fauci was in the news again this week. We talked about him last week, and that's when he did 111 times take the Fifth Amendment. And we mentioned last week that contempt of Congress was going to be coming, and it did come this week. There was the vote that was taken by the committee there that was run by Rand Paul. They have now referred that to the Department of Justice, and it's going to be interesting to watch. Rand Paul says, we would just want to find out, is he actually able to take the Fifth, is what Rand Paul is asking, and then, or is he in contempt of Congress because he was not compelled to answer the questions? You and I both talked about this last weekend, and so now they're moving forward with it.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing actually wrong with pleading the Fifth in that, I think if you're ever in a position where you're being questioned by law enforcement and you don't have a lawyer, that's what you should be doing until you have representation. And, the cops the interrogators are probably going to be smarter than you are, and you don't want to confuse yourself and accidentally contradict yourself. So I don't think pleading the Fifth on its own is a crime, or is even proof of guilt, I should say. However, Fauci is in a position where he is pardoned. And the whole point of pleading the Fifth is protect yourself against incrimination. Well, he can't incriminate himself because he's been pardoned. So what exactly is he protecting himself against? And it's good we're going to finally get an answer to this. But I think the answer is he did something wrong, and it's going to come out, and it's going to be reputation destroying. And even if it's not legally actionable, it would still be damning to the point where it destroys his whole legacy, perhaps even in the eyes of his sycophantic followers. So it's good we're going to get an answer to that legal question. But, the Fifth itself, listen, Trump has pled the Fifth a million times. I would plead the Fifth. I don't think there's a problem with that. It's this specific context that's the problem.
Well, I think there's another question too, Matt, and that question is, does the executive branch, Joe Biden in this case, does he have the right to do a preventative pardon? I mean, I had never heard of that before. Right. He's pardoning all of these people in case there is a crime. Well, how do you do that? And is that legal? Yeah. And I think that's another question that we're going to have answered here. But let's go to the vote here in this committee on whether or not to move to a referral to the Department of Justice for little Fauci.
Motion. The question is on reporting of an original resolution regarding contempt of Congress. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Johnson.
Yes.
Senator Langford.
Aye.
Senator Scott.
Yes.
Senator Hawley.
Aye.
Senator Moreno.
On behalf of the millions of people harmed by Anthony Fauci, resoundingly yes.
Senator Ernst. Aye. Senator Moody.
Okay, so there you have all the Republicans. They were all yes. Now let's go to the Democrats. Pay attention to John Fetterman because he is here. He's going to vote. Let's see how he votes. Is he going to be voting yes, or is he going to vote no?
I don't think
Matt
so.
And I both, Matt and I both say this all the time. Pay attention to how he votes. He will vote with conservatives 2 times on Israel and a continuing resolution to keep the government funded. Other than that, he votes as a Democrat.
We'll go on Fox News and be like, yeah, Fauci's a really terrible guy. And this is 5 minutes after that.
Yeah, right. Well, here's the Democrats.
Senator Peters.
No.
Senator Hassan. No. Senator Blumenthal.
No.
Senator Fetterman. No. Senator Kim. No. Senator Gallego.
No by proxy.
Senator Slotkin.
No by proxy.
Senator Paul.
Yes.
And that was it. That was the end of it. And so we'll see where this goes in the Department of Justice. And I just took you off the stage there, Matt. I didn't mean to. well, I didn't mean to do that. I apologize. Welcome back to the program. I removed the wrong one.
Good to be back.
It's good to have you, even though you're on vacation. We're coming up to the end of the hour, but let's stay here with Fauci one more time and also include our sports here. I know you always look forward to the sports segment. I think you're going to like this one, actually. This is Aaron Rodgers. He's always been a little bit outspoken. Have you seen this video, Matt?
No, because you've been too busy with all the WNBA drama.
All right, well, here we go. Here's Aaron Rodgers.
This year, last rodeo, and you talked about your wife saying, hey, have another year. Mike McCarthy being here, obviously a big deal. Can you tell us about the mindset of coming into your last season? Like, that's a real thing, it feels like, because is everything better? Is everything funner? Is everything more awesome? Like, how do you kind of view this year versus maybe the years of the past?
I'm going to plead the fifth.
Okay. Okay.
Like
Gotta love that guy.
Okay.
Like that absolute coward, Tony Fauci. Absolute coward.
Yeah.
It's back, baby.
I thought you would like that one, Matt. He called Fauci
That's
a coward.
awesome.
He's not done. He's not done, by the way.
Oh, good.
Kidding me?
Yeah, 111
You got a
times.
pardon and you're in front and you pleaded over 100 times
Yeah.
at the White House. What are you scared of, Tony?
Yeah.
I thought you were the science.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought you were I am science, and you get up there and you can't answer a question.
Yeah.
What are we doing? And how much time did the network spend at that? How much time did they spend on my responses every week, on my vaccination status, on Taylor and Travis's wedding? Yeah! Did they do even a minute? Did they do even a minute on Tony Fauci?
No, I don't think I've heard
Nah, I
anything.
bet they didn't.
And of course, we know that they didn't spend any time on Tony Fauci. But there's Aaron Rodgers. He's in his final year this year. I think he's 42, 43 years old now. Go ahead, Matt.
I mean, if they didn't give it a minute, it was exactly 1 minute, and probably nothing more.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. So, by the way, with the NFL, they came out. Roger Goodell, he is the head of the NFL. He came out and told Aaron Rodgers to watch it because we have to be careful. And then, if you remember, it was the NFL with Colin Kaepernick that took a knee in the national anthem that kind of started all of that. And then we went through crazy with the NFL putting things on their helmet that was woke and DEI and. I think a lot of people got turned off by it. That's gone now, and we see Aaron Rodgers is the only one with common sense, I think, in the NFL.
Remember when they wrote in the end zones, like, end racism? Like, there's going to be one racist watching the game, and he's going to be like, oh, man, I really never thought of it
I
that
should
way.
stop.
I
should stop this. Yeah, I need to stop this. Thank God it was in the end zone.
Right.
Thank goodness I saw that. So what do we look for this week? We got the House of Representatives are back.
Well, I was going to say we need right-wing reparations, which is we get a whole century where every celebrity opinion is Republican just to pay us back. This week, sorry. I guess we'll see what goes on with Fauci. We'll see the advancement of the contempt charge. I am curious to know, can you really plead the fifth after not being convictable? I think it's an interesting legal question. I'm going to continue to pretend to care about Iran updates, and that's pretty much it.
We made it through the hour without talking about Iran. I don't think there's much to talk about with regard to that. It's the same thing. It's a Groundhog Day when it comes to Iran and a ceasefire and a deal, and we'll just wait and see when it happens. It happens. Until then, we'll just probably not talk about it a whole lot. Donald Trump on Friday, he signed an executive order about birth tourism. So he's going to try this again. And the birthright citizenship was turned down in the Supreme Court. But on Friday, he signed an executive order, which I believe is the way he should have done it from the beginning, Matt. He should have really just done birth tourism, not birthright citizenship, and maybe there was a better chance. So he's trying that again. That came out on Friday, so we'll watch that. I'm not sure what we'll see next week. We have some more elections that are coming up. You have Florida coming up, and you have a governor's race there with Byron Donalds that appears to be leading, but he's going to have an interesting challenge coming up for him in November with David Jolly, a Democrat that used to be a Republican only about 18 months ago and used to sit in the U.S. House of Representatives as a Republican. So now, 18 months later, he's become a Democrat, and he is going to be running against Byron Donalds once the election is over. So we'll see how that goes. So we'll watch that and the other primaries coming up. Matt, enjoy your vacation. How long are you staying there on the Cape?
Thank you, sir. Just till Sunday, but
just a weekend.
Short vacation.
Yeah, well, enjoy your vacation with your wife and your beautiful little girl. She's so pretty. You brought her on before we started the broadcast, so it's great to see her. She's such a beautiful little girl. And thank you for watching us, the PB&J podcast, Palumbo Booker Justified. Thank you for watching. Whether you're watching on WD Americans Live or any of the Talk Red platforms, thank you so much for doing.
You have been watching a no-budget production, the PB&J podcast.